Hi everyone, I'm Don from Langara Makerspace, and today we're going to get into setting up a file in Fusion 360 to run on our Pocket NC milling machine. Okay, so we're in Fusion 360 and we're in the design module. If you click on this, you'll see it's the top module. Now I've built something in here, I'm just going to unhide it, and that's great if you've built your object in Fusion 360. However, if you've built it in another program, that's no problem. Just go to the top menu, Insert Mesh, and you're just going to select the file that's an exported STL or an exported object file, and just go Open, and it'll open it up. So just a little info on objects using the Pocket NC. It is a 5-axis machine, so sometimes you feel like it can do anything, but you do have to watch it. Now what I like to do is take the actual shaft with the tool out of the machine and just hold it up to each face on the stock and just imagine it. Is there going to be any clearance problems? Is the collar going to hit any of these areas? And speaking of which, on this object here, there's some pretty tight undercuts in here, and it might have a little trouble getting right in there. So what I would do in that case, I'm just going to do F command for fillet. I'm just going to select this bottom area, F command for fillet, select that, and I should be able to get it with a 0.02 of an inch. Okay, that looks nice now. There's a little co-fillet in there, and the round end mill tool bit should be able to get in there no problem at all. Now, something I didn't mention here, this actual rectangular base, I designed it that way, so that's part of the finished product. But quite often, you're going to want to cut your object away from the base. You do need a base for the Pocket NC that gets fastened into the vise, and you can't tool into that area because it's the area where there's set screws and that kind of thing. So what you would usually do, where the object meets your base, you would do a machining operation where it cuts out a lot of that, and then you would probably just hand saw it at the end to just cut your object away from the actual foundation. So the next stage is we need to import the base of the Pocket NC, which is the turntable and the vise and that. So I'm just going to hide that body for now. I'm going to make sure I'm clicked on the root here. Just going to close that, click on the root. Going to go to the top left and click on Show Data Panel, and if it's not already here, we're looking for the B table with Vise V1, and it's from Pocket NC. You can hit Upload and select the file. We'll give you access to the file, and just select the file and upload it and bring it in. But here I've already got it in, so I'm going to click on that. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say Insert into Current Design. Okay, and there we have our vise. It's asking to move. I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to say OK, and there we go. And I'm just going to close this data panel for now. And there we have our vise. And now you can see it here on our menu here, the B table with the vise. Okay, so we've got the B table in here. Now just make sure that Sketches is visible. Just click on there. And there's 3 things in Sketch. By the way, these are just the different parts, and we're going to actually have to manipulate a few things later. But we want to double click on the B table offset. So I'm just going to double click that, and then you can see a dimension in there. Now, every single Pocket NC is different, and they give us a number when they ship the machine. So our number is actually 0.8355. So we're going to double click, so highlight the dimensions, double click it, and now we can change this to 0.8355, and then just hit enter. And you can see it says 836 because it's just rounding it off, but if we double click on that, again, you'll see it's 8355. So just go over here and say Finish Sketch. Now our offset is set for our machine. Okay, so now let's take a look at the pocket NC. We need to look at each axis to understand how to set up the model. So this is basically a side view. The vise isn't mounted yet in this image, but the vise gets mounted in here and your object gets mounted in this area here. Okay, so this is your tool with your spindle or shaft and the actual motor that powers this. So the spindle and the tooling goes back in and out basically on the Z axis. So negative Z is going to go towards your object, which will be mounted here, and plus Z is going to go retract from the object. Okay? Then we have the Y axis. Now, this is a turntable here where your object will be mounted. And then this spins here also, but this is mounted to this object here. This goes up and down. So up and down. You can see the sliders here. And that is going to be the Y axis. Negative Y is going to go up, positive Y is going to go down. The next thing is, this is a platform that holds your turntable and your object and your vise. But this object itself, or this area here, rotates around this bolt. So it rotates around like that. And that's called the A axis. So negative A is going to go counterclockwise, and positive A is going to go clockwise. So it's going to rotate like that. So there's our Z axis, in and out. Our A axis, it rotates the foundation for the turntable, and the Y axis, it goes up and down. Now we'll look at a more of a top view, angled top view of the pocket NC. Now you can see the vise in there and the turntable, and I've got a piece of wood mounted right now. So here's our tooling, our shaft. Now the motor, the tooling, the shaft goes towards you and towards the back on the X axis. So negative X is going to go to the back, and positive X is going to come towards you. Okay. And then we have the actual turntable, this part with the vise and your object mounted. That's the B axis. So this actually rotates here. So positive B is going to be counterclockwise, and negative B will be clockwise. So you can see a little better. There's how the turntable spins there. So we've got your X and your B axis. So that should make it clear when we start to set up the model. Okay, so we're just going to go back to this vise here. Let's hide the sketches for now. Just click on that. And we're going to extend this Pocket NC Vise section. Just click on that. And we need to go to gripper screw 1 here. Now, let's just go up here and click on top view. You can see our screw there. Now, we're going to be machining this object out of a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch block. And I know that I'm going to have to bring these set screws backwards to be able to hold the block. So I'm going to move them back to the second last hole here. So I'm just going to click M for move, and I'm going to bring that back, and you can zoom in and make sure you're right over that hole and just go OK. And then we're going to go down to gripper screw 4. So just make sure the little black dots in the circle so we know we're highlighted there. Click M for move, and we're going to put this just parallel to the other one. Okay, and you can look at these measurements here and just type in the same measurements so they'll be in the exact same place if you want. Okay, so we have to move the front part of the vise to allow to hold our block that we're going to be machining. So first off, I'm just going to move the object up. So let's highlight our object again. Make sure the little black dot's in the circle. And there's our object. So you can see we're going to have to move it up. So what we want to do now is move the base up so it hits the back set screws. So we're just going to click M for move. We're just going to lift it up. Make sure you're on a right view so we can see where we actually are. And you can zoom in and get as close as you can to landing on the vise. Now the threads, you can see the threads. We actually want to push it into the threads just slightly before the main body of the set screw starts, because the set screws will actually dig into the object or your block to actually lock it in. I'm just going to go OK. Now let's go around to the back view and click on back to get a 90-degree angle. And we're going to click M again to move, and let's just get that centered in the two set screws. Looks good. Okay. So now you can see the front assembly of the vise is digging in too much. So now we have to move this entire front of the vise. So I'm going to click on the Pocket NC vise again. Again, make sure the black dot's in the circle there. And we're just going to click on M for move. And we're going to make sure we've got bodies for the move here. And we're going to click on set screws, the main part, this bolt, and these two shafts. You might have to revolve around it to get all those parts. And then this threaded area here, we just want to click on that. And now we have the whole area. Let's go to a right side view. And now you can see how far we are into the object. So we're going to pull that out so the threads are just tapping into that object. And that's perfect. You can see here it looks like it's a little bit above the surface. So we'll just go back to the right view. I'm going to click back up on the body. Then just click M again for move. And we're just going to bring that down slightly. That looks good. So what we have to do now is create the actual blank that we're going to be machining. So to do that, just make sure you're clicked on the objects area. Let's go up to create and box. And this is going to come up. Some components have been moved because we actually moved our object to be set into the vise. So just go capture position. And now I want to click on the bottom of my object. If your object isn't rectangular on the bottom like this, you can just start a new sketch on the vise surface. I'm going to click on there, first corner, second corner, and I'm going to go up. And you can see it wants to cut it right away. Just go up to the box menu, go to new body, and now you can see all the measurements here. Now you should be typing in the actual measurements of your stock. So I know my stock is 2 inches by 2 1/4 inches by 2 inches. And just make sure it's completely covering the object. And we just say OK. Now you can see the base is just slightly protruding. That's just a fraction of an inch, so I'm not going to worry about that. So while we're doing this, we're also going to do some sketches now. Now, an easy thing to do here is let's give this stock a different material, and that's so we can see through it. So if we go up to Modify, Appearance, And I'm just going to give this a glass look. So now you can see right through our stock, and just close that. Okay, so we're going to do some sketches now, and what we're going to do sketches for is it defines the machine's, this Pocket NC machine's limitations for where it's going to be machining. So we're going to go create sketch. We're going to click on that surface, and we're going to do a rectangle. And we're not going to go right down to the bottom where the set screws and everything are. So what we're doing is we're making sure the tooling never goes down to an area where it can get into trouble. So I'm just going to do it just below the base, and if we look at the numbers here, we got 1.06, and that should be great. Just go finish sketch. Now, important, over here on the sketches we have sketch 6. Sketch 1's from the original object, so let's double click sketch 6, and let's just say this is plane front. We have to select these later, so it's important to name them. So we're going to repeat that to all the other sides. So again, go up to create sketch. We're going to click on the left side now, rectangle, and again go just below the surface of your base and finish sketch. And then just repeat that for all the sides, including the top area. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made a plane for each surface, and you can see they're all named plane B, plane R for right, plane T for top. So you can see they're all the way around the object. They just come slightly down below the base, and again, that's going to define where the tooling can go, so it doesn't get into the vise and the set screw area. Just going to change one thing here. Because we made the our stock blue, and actually the planes are the same color, let's just hide the sketches for a moment and go up to modify, appearance. Let's just change the color of this stock. So there's a red. Let's give it red. Okay, just close that. And we'll unhide the sketch planes again, and that looks better. That was all in design, the design module of Fusion 360. Now we're going to click on this area in the top left corner and go down to manufacturer. And here we are. So you can see everything's set up here. We've got our vise, it's all locked into our stock. There's our object underneath, and there's all our planes there. So here's the model, and it says setups, and this is where we're going to begin the setting up of the tooling for the Pocket NC. Okay, we're just going to expand this menu here, and let's just hide the stock for now. I'm going to keep on object, and we're going to turn off the sketches, and then we're going to go down to the B table. And we want to have sketches on. Now, we need that B table offset, but you can turn the other sketches off. Okay, and then we're going to go up to Setup, New Setup. So, for this pop-up, the machine, don't select anything. Operation is milling, that's fine. Model orientation. We're going to click on this and select the Z and X axis. So now you can see, click on this area, and we want to click on the front area of the vise here. So we're going to click that, and then for the X-axis, we're going to click on the right side back here. Okay? So your icon should look like that. The Z is going to be pointing right at you, and the X is going to be pointing to the right. Okay, so we're going to go down to the origin here, and we're going to select selected point. And now this is when we need to access this offset of our sketch here. So we're just going to click on that, And there we go, there's our offset. And down at model, it says nothing. Let's click on that and click on our actual model. Make sure that gets highlighted. Then fixture isn't checked. Let's check that. And it says nothing right now. So we're going to go around and select all of our fixture. And this will help our tooling and the Pocket NC from not crashing into itself. So select all these set screws. Select these shafts under here. There we go. And there should be 11 bodies then selected. Now we can go to the second section. And this is, let's change this from the mode of stock to a solid. And this is our stock here. There it is. So it's the red that we made before. So click on that. And that selected our stock. And this part, program number, you can put a name in there if you want. WCS offset, you don't have to do anything there. And just click OK. Okay, so the setup basically orientates everything, lets the machine know where the turntable is, lets it know where the stock and the model is. The next stage we're going to do is to add some tooling operations. We're going to require the tools here. Now, if you don't have this set up, the library, you have to do this. So we're going to go over to Manage, Tool Library, and you can see under Local, which is on my machine, I've got the Pocket NC Tool Library. Now, if you don't have this yet, just click on Local, right-click, and Import Libraries. And we'll get this to you or email it to you so you have that library. So I would have just said open, found the library, opened it, and then you're going to see this Pocket NC library. Okay, so now we're going to go up to add one of the tooling paths. We're going to go up to 3D. We're going to click on that and click on Adaptive Clearing. Now, adaptive clearing is used to kind of rough in your object. So we're going to use other tooling paths later to refine the object. But right now we want a fairly large bit and we want to clear out a lot of material. So there's 5 tabs here. We're going to have to go through all of them. Do not cancel because it will lose your settings that you've plugged in. So the first thing we want to do is click on the tool. And as we told you before, you wanted to have imported this library, and you can see when you come into the Makerspace, there's a rack of tools, and they're all numbered so you know which one is which. I'm going to click on the number 8. This is a fairly large bit for the Pocket NC. It's a 1/8 inch diameter bit, and it's got a ball end mill, which will be a nice way to clear out a lot of material. Now on the right side here, you see info, and that changes on what tool I select. Something you should make a note of, length below the holder. Now that's how far basically your actual bit is coming out from the holder. So once tightened up, it should be coming out 3/4 of an inch for this tool, okay? So make a note of that, and you have to make sure you insert the tool that way. So we've highlighted the number of the tool we want. We're going to hit select. And now on the menu here, you see a whole bunch of red areas. Now, these are all can change depending on the stock you're using, depending on the material. So if you're using wood, it can be faster. If you're using aluminum, it's going to have to slow right down. Otherwise, you're just going to break the bits. So we do have a PDF for you that will show you what to plug in depending on the tool you're using and depending on the material you're using and depending on the operation you're doing. Okay, so for this, we're going to plug in 508 millimeters a minute. And you can see this rate changes as I plug something in, so you don't change this. This is actually all synced in through these numbers as we plug it in. So this is the cutting feed rate, and it's how aggressive it comes in when it's cutting and tooling. The lead in is how it actually approaches it. We're going to slow that down a little bit because it can sometimes catch things and snap the tooling. So we're going to slow that down a bit. The lead out is how fast it comes out. And the ramp is when it's coming in on an angle or spiral, it's ramping in. We're going to change that to 254. And then the plunge is how it comes straight down into something. And I'm going to change that to 127. And you can see if you actually hold over these items, a little pop-up to show you what it actually means if you're interested in a little more detail on what the tooling does. So that's the first tab. Don't go OK or cancel at this point. We're going to go to the second tab now. So we're going to click on this tab. And I see a few things here. We don't need this sketch of the offset plane anymore. That's in our Vise under sketches. I'll just turn that off. Also the stock, I don't think I really want that on right now. I want to be able to see this better. Okay. So you see we got a number of things here. We definitely need to uncheck rest machining, and I'm going to tell you more about that in the next operation. Geometry, don't touch this yet. Stock contours, I'm going to uncheck that. And so everything's unchecked. I'm going to check tool orientation. Now, this is very important. If you don't set up this right, it doesn't work, basically. And it's fairly easy to remember. Whatever your side you're working on, I call this the front. Even though when it's set up in the machine, this will be pointing at you in the home mode. I call this the front because it's pointing to the shaft and tool in the home position. So you can name these any way you want, but you do need to name them so you can understand what side you're machining at any one time. Okay? So the rule of thumb is, if I'm machining this side, I want the Z-axis to be pointing at me or to be pointing towards the shaft and tool, okay? So we're going to take this, and we're just going to click on this. I know it's a perpendicular flat surface. And now all of a sudden you can see that the Z-axis is pointing towards us, okay? And then the X-axis is always to the right of that. So I'm just going to click on another, I know, parallel surface. Just do the side of the vise. And there we go. And that's how your icon or gimbal should look. You've got the Z pointing away from the side you're tooling, and the X-axis is pointing to the right. Okay, so that's perfect. Now we're going to go up to geometry, but first, on our object, let's unhide sketches, and actually, let's just hide everything except for the front plane, and that's that blue panel you see there, okay? So for machining boundary, I'm going to go down to the bottom of that drop-down menu and put selection. I'm going to select that, and you can see it's all green now. That means the tooling is not going to go outside of this area, so it won't get into trouble. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go to the next tab, and you see a bunch of basically planes all of a sudden pop up here. Okay, so the clearance height, you can see that's how far it's going to retract out your tooling, so it's okay about there. Retract height, the actual tool, the bit, is set to the stock top. So if we put that top stock in again, you see it's flush to that. That's good. The only thing we really want to change here is the bottom height, and that's this panel here. So you can just click on that panel. You see it went blue? So whatever you click on is going to be that color. Okay? Now I can move it with this arrow. Okay, just to explain where we're going to line this up, I've created the actual tool and shaft here. Now we've got the stock unhidden. I'm just going to hide the it for a second. you can see a straight on view. That red area is the safety area of this bit. Now this bit extends 3/4 of an inch. It's the number 8. So it's approximately 1/4 inch I can't go in. If I go in any further than that, I can collide with the set screws and I can possibly collide with the base. The collet will collide with these. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb. So now we'll show you how we're going to set this up. I'm going to click on the first command and we're going to go to the heights, and you can see the blue. If you click on that, and now I can move it with this arrow. Just going to make sure I'm right on the left view. So I want that lined up right to the base. Now, I do have guides if you want to use these, but basically what we want to do, make sure this is on stock top. It's usually at stock bottom, but I'm putting it at stock top, and I'm going to do the offset negative 0.5 of an inch from the stock top and go OK. And that is going to give us the right measurement. Now, if you're using a 1 inch, if the bit comes out 1 inch, again, you want to take off a good 1/4 of an inch. So that is basically your guide. So you want to make sure you don't go any deeper than this, because this collet will collide. This machine is not that intelligent. It will collide into your stock bottom, which is here, or it could nick those set screws, okay? So keep that in mind. Take one more look at that. Under the heights, want to make sure we're on stock top, and we want to be negative offset of 0.5 inch. And again, if that's with a bit coming out 3/4 of an inch, if it's coming out an inch, we want to be offset 0.75 of an inch. So we've always got that 1/4 an inch safety area where the collet won't crash into the our base, or else the vise and the set screws. So I hope that's clear. So now let's go to the 4th tab. Important thing here for me, I usually leave this. This looks fairly okay. It's kind of defaulting to the tool. You can check again with our PDF to change these depending on your material. But the most important thing here is the stock to leave, okay? So as I said before, this adaptive is basically we're trying to get rid of a lot of material. So we need to leave material on it for the final finishing operation, okay? So 0.5 millimeter, that's pretty good. So that sounds good. Let's leave that there. We're not going to change any of these other settings. Let's go to the very last tab. And a lot of stuff here we don't usually have to change, except for the first thing I like to change. It's got full retraction. That means the tool will pull out fully or minimal. It'll just pull out the minimum amount it needs to clear the stock. So I like to do minimal. It just speed up everything. And I'm going to pretty well leave everything else the same here. We can get very technical about the ramping and the helix, the type of stuff. Pre-drill, you can use it for some operations. I don't find we really need it for adaptive. You can click a point on where it's going to start entry in that. I don't think it usually needs it. So now we've gone through all 5 tabs. We're going to actually click on OK. And then you're going to see over here, it's starting to generate everything. And actually that did it pretty fast. Okay, let's just go up and hide the object, the stock, for now. And that green box kind of represents the tooling. You can just click anywhere on the white to get rid of that, so we can see the paths. And now you can see the orange here is the actual tooling coming into the object, okay? It's sort of its access points and how it's coming in. The blue is the actual bit as it's machining, okay? So you can take a good look at that. And you can see here how it's coming into that line we defined, how far it can come in. And you can see it doesn't do too much of the top here. And that's because the best way to do this is do one side at a time. There are ways to do multi-axis, but I find the best way to do a true complex three-dimensional object is to do each side as its own tooling operation. Okay? So there we go. Now we're going to do final finishing operations, but we don't want to do that right now. You want to do all the tooling operations, all the adaptive operations for all sides, like one after another. If you were just doing one side, great, then we could get into the finishing operation. Also, you don't want to keep changing bits. So we're set at the 8-bit. We're going to do the other side now. The easiest way to do this is we're going to do it this side here. We're just going to copy this, but first off, we're just going to slowly double click or just click on that twice so we can change the name of this. Now I want to keep adaptive because that's the operation, but what I'm going to add is F, and that's for the front. It's important to know what face you're machining. So now we got the adaptive F. So I'm going to click on this again. This time I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go 3/4 of the way down and go duplicate. And you see it's going to start calculating. You can just double click that so it stops calculating. Okay. Now we've got all our settings still, which is fantastic, but we have to change a few things because now we're going to be doing this side over here. Okay. So we're going to go to the second tab and just forget the machining boundary for now. What we need to change is the tool orientation. So the Z-axis, remember, we're going to do this face. We want that to be pointing at us. So just click on here, and the X should be on that side, and it was automatically, but it wasn't defined here. So just go and click on the side of the vise here. And you can see now the icon or gimbal is correct. The X is pointing at us, but this is wrong over here. So just go up to machining boundary, click X to get rid of that. It's on nothing. We're going to go back over to the sketches. Now, this is the left side we're doing now, or what I call the left. So I'm unhiding the left plane, and for machining boundary now, we're going to click on that, and you see it goes green. And that's all we have to change except for one very important thing. The rest machining that we didn't use on the very first operation, it's because, I'm just going to minimize this here. It's because rest machining is going to look at the last operation, and it won't mill in the same areas the last operation did. So I'm going to go to source and go from previous operation. That's also very important. And that's it. And we're going to go OK now. And just like before, it's going to start generating that machining there. It's kind of fun. You can look at the paths again. So the yellow here is the tooling as it comes in and out, and the blue is the actual bit as it's actually machining the object. And that's pretty cool. You can see the green there, how it's actually cutting out of the actual object there. So that's done. One thing we might as well do right now, and that's change the name of this. So instead of F2, we're going to just do an L for left. So T8 is going to be the tool, adaptive is the operation, and F is the side, okay? So there we go. And just click outside of that again to so you don't see the green box anymore. So that's two operations. Basically, you're going to have to go around to, we've got 5 sides here, the 4 sides and the top. You're going to have to go around and repeat that every time. So just do exactly what I just did for each side, and we're going to come back and start with some finishing operations after that. Okay, so we've done all 5 sides of this now. You could save these individual G codes now, but I like to go through all the operations Just so you know, just the operations I've done so far are probably a few days. When we get into the finishing, it's going to take even longer. The Pocket NC is not a speedy machine. So anyhow, let's start with, we're going to do this side, which I call the front again. I have my sketch already. Let's just hide these other setups so far. And let's go to 3D. And this time I'm going to select steep and shallow. So you see it's pretty much the same interface as before. It's already got the tool 8 selected. We're going to change that right now. Click on the Pocket NC tool library. And I'm going to select the 11. This is a 0.031 of an inch diameter this time. It is a bull-nosed. And look over here now under the info. The length below the holder is an inch now. It was 3/4 of an inch with the last tool bit. So this has to be mounted into its collet, into the holder, 1 inch below. So make sure you make a note of that. And so you select it and hit select. Okay, the pop-up menu is pretty much like before. We're going to enter in some figures here. Let's do 508, which is about 20 inches per minute. And the lead-in rate, going to slow that down a bit to 254. The lead out would leave at 508. The ramp feed rate, let's change that to 254. And the plunge, let's change that to 127. And just leave the shaft and holder the same. So let's go to the second tab. And like before, we're going to change this in a bit. Let's first go to tool orientation. Just like before, we're going to be doing this side, which I call the front. The Z-axis pointing at us, or pointing towards the tool holder. So I'm going to click on that. There we go. And then as always, the X-axis will be to the right of that. So we'll click here. And the icon or gimbal looks good now. Not going to check any of these. Rest machining, yes, we need to do this. Make sure it's from previous operations. And something important here, use as computed. Make sure that is checked, used as computed. And so we'll go up to the top now, the machining boundary. Let's do selection again. Let's click that sketch. Contact only is fine. Let's just uncheck that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, like the past operations, we now need to set this bottom height. But this time our bit comes out from the collet 1 inch. So again, I've made this template to show you how to line this up. But basically we want to go from, click this and change it to from the stock top. And then we want to offset this 0.75 of an inch. Okay, and that'll give us that 1/4 inch allowance. And sorry, make sure it's negative 0.75 an inch. That'll give us the 1/4 inch safety distance for this bit. And let's go to the next one. Everything is fine here except for stock to leave. Now, I'm going to set this to 0 because this is going to be my last and only finishing operation. Now, you could do another finishing operation. You can use a different process or you can use a different bit or both. If that was the case, we're going to do a third process for each side. Then we want to leave definitely some of the stock, probably 1 or 2 millimeters. Probably 1 millimeter we would leave. Again, depending on the operation. Okay, we can leave everything else and go up to the next tab. This is something that Fusion 360 has just added and wasn't here before. Because it could go into multi-axis mode here, which means it won't just be doing a side, it may rotate a bit. I'm just going to add collision avoidance and put it on automatic, okay? And that's all I'm going to do there. And let's go to the last tab. And the only thing I really need to change here is I want minimum retraction. That's the tool pulling out. I don't want it to go very far because it's just more time. So I'm going to click on OK. And I'm just going to make sure that is seen. You can click on this at the same time. I'm going to change this to SS for steep and shallow and F for front. Then you can also see the percentage as it's creating the tooling here. Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. I'll mention again. The tooling and all this setup I'm doing is for wood. If it was aluminum, all the settings would be slower. If it was a wax or a plastic, we could probably speed everything up a bit. So our operation has completed. So just like before, now we've got to do all the other 4 sides, the other 3 sides in the top. So just like before, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go duplicate, and there's my new command. Again, double click on that before it starts. I'm going to go to the second tab, and what we want to do is change this. I'm going to do the left side, so let's just hide and unhide the right planes here for my sketches. And so click the Z-axis, I'm going to click on this. See the blue there is heading this way now. And for the X-axis, click on the right side. And there we have our icon or gimbal looking correct. So back up to the top, selection. That's right, but just click on undo that machining boundary with the X and then click on that new sketch. And that's all we have to do to produce the other side. Just go OK. And it's going to start generating that. And when that finishes generating, we're going to just rename this to SS left or L. And then we're going to continue and do the rest of the other sides. And we'll be back. Okay, so you can see we've finished all of the sides with the final operation. Still not sure what that is. As I said, I've tested the G code in the Pocket NC simulator. Everything looks fine. There's no errors, so cross our fingers that's okay. So, we're about to do the final stages in Fusion 360. Let's save this from time to time. We've got all these processes done. We're going to click on the very first one, and we're going to right click, and we're going to go post process. Now I've already set this up here to go to my output folder. You don't have to worry about configuration so much. It sets it into its own folder, but this is your output. You're going to need to find these files. So definitely click on this and put it where these files where you want them. I'd like to number the operations so I don't get out of sync either, because you don't want to mix one of these up with another one because they need to follow in order. So I'm going to name this 001 the it, which is my object, th the tool, adapt for adaptive is the process, and F is for front. So basically the same as over here, except I've added the name of it, the it for the object. I named 01. So very important that you put these in the correct order. I'm going to post this. Just go save. And you might see this code pop up. It seems to be something new with Fusion. Don't worry about this. When it's done, just close it. That file's ready now. Now we go to the second one. Right click again, post process, and repeat that. So this one's going to be 002, the it, adapt, and this is the left. Seem to have missed a letter in there. There we go. and post, and hit save. You can see this is still doing stuff. I don't think it matters, but I would wait till it's finished processing, then click close. So you're going to want to repeat that with all of these. And then when you're done, you can do, first of all, you can open up this website again, Pocket NC Simulator, and you can click on G-code, and there's our first process. And you can see how it starts to build it. Run the simulator. You can run it as fast as you want, but watch here for red and here for red. I tend to just sit back a little so I can see everything all at once and just kind of watch for the reds. You can run this way slower to really see what it's doing. You can also change the views. Okay. And you can actually zoom in or out. So we seem to have a warning right at the very end, and you can just mouse over it and you can see what it is. And most of these warnings are just this command's being ignored by the simulator. And actually make sure V210, which is it seems to be checked already, is checked. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. If you look on the left, you can see all the red X's. And you can see the machine itself here turning red. That means it's got problems. You can see that the collet and the tool are going in way too far when your stock is. So that would definitely crash if you ran this program. So I think it is important to take a look at the simulator and make sure there's nothing red going on, because if there is, you need to go back to your Fusion 360 tooling and fix it. Okay? So a good thing to do before you get to the Pocket NC. So now you want to save those G-codes, and I would save a copy to a USB drive, and we're going to talk to you again over at our Pocket NC. Go to the Pocket NC computer, PC. Here we go. We've got all our post files on here. We're just going to insert this. And the first thing you want to do, it says it wants to fix it, just ignore it. The first thing you want to do is copy these files to the desktop, okay? We don't want to run it off a USB just in case it slows it down a bit. And then just eject the Pocket or the USB. So now we're going to go over to the Pocket NC. Now here's the tools. They're all going to be, all your bits are going to be lined up here. And I've installed this like our instructions, 0.75 of an inch out of the collet. So that's ready to insert. We're going to lift cover up on this, and we're going to insert this in. You're going to see there's 3 tabs here, and we're going to put this in so it lines up with the tabs. So first thing we want to do is make sure our power plug's plugged in, and then this plug is going into the PC. All right. Then we're going to turn this switch on, so the straight line has to be down, and this red light's going to start flashing at some point, and then we'll deal with that. So I've inserted the tool. We've got 3/4 of an inch here. There's 3 tabs here, so I've inserted it. I've snugged up these 3 set screws, and then tightened them just past snug. You don't want to strip them. Okay, so here's our vise. We've got our approximately 2-inch block, and I've marked which sides I want to line up. So I'm just going to insert it in there. I'm going to use this large Allen wrench to just snug it up a bit more. And then I'm going to use a caliper to just make sure we're exact on all the sides. Now, because this is wood, those set screws are going to dig a little bit into that wood. Now, we don't want to do it too tight because it is aluminum and it could strip, but you got to make sure that block is very secure in there. Okay? So we've got our tooling in. You can see now that the red light is flashing. That's great. We can now go to our computer screen, and you'll see that this file menu has popped up and it says BeagleBone getting started. Okay, so that's fine. We're just going to close that, and then we're going to open this icon here called the Pocket NC. Okay, so you can see the light is flashing here. We can just now, everything's set up, we've got everything tightened in here. We're going to close the lid and we're going to press this thing on. Okay, so now it's a steady light. That means the Pocket NC is ready to go. I'm going to go back to the computer. We're going to upload one of the first files. So I'm going to load the very first file, which I've named number 1. It's adapt. It's the rear. It's going to machine, and it's V2, which is the one I want. So I'm just going to double click that. It's going to load it up. Looks good. Now, something we need to do right away. You're going to see some messages down here. That's just telling you what operations you've been doing. We're going to now go to tooling. Okay, we're using the tool number 8. We have to tell the NC, the Pocket NC, what the exact measurement is. So we're going to measure tool 8. Okay, that's good. It says there's an alert here. It says you can't issue this command when it's not home. So we're going to go back to production, the top menu here, and we're going to go home all. And now you're going to see the Pocket NC. It's going to set itself to the home position. Okay. So now we're homed. But now we're going to go to tooling. Now we're going to go to number 8 because that's the bit that I'm using. I'm going to click on measure. And now on the Pocket NC, you can see it's moved towards us. It's on the closest to us right now. But the other thing is this green light's flashing. That means it's ready to do a command or an operation. So now you have to push that. Try that again. And now this, what it's going to do is there's a little sensor down the side of underneath the vise there, and it's going to go in there. The tool is going to tap, and then it's going to know exactly how far up that tool comes. So that's great. Our tool is measured now. Very important that you need to do that every time you load a new tool in. So now we'll go back to production. We've got our file loaded. Everything's ready to go now. And we're going to go run from. And as soon as we do that, so make sure now that the lid is definitely closed. There's nothing obstructing anything. Nothing's in the way. This is in tight. This is in tight. Close the lid. And we're going to click Run From. And once again, you can see that our green light is flashing. So it's ready to go. We're going to click on this. And now you can see the Pocket NC running. So here's our machine machining. See the lights are on. If there's any problems over, just hit the red button and it'll stop the machining. If you hear the thing really get crazy, it means it's too much load on the machine. Could be a problem with the way you've set up the tooling. Just the little Pocket NC can't handle it. So you're trying to take maybe too much material off at a short amount of time. So again, maybe just keep your hand ready to hit the red button. If the tool ever crashes into any metal parts or the vise, again, you want to hit that red button right away. And that'll instantly stop the machine. Again, we're doing wood right now, so it's fairly soft, fairly easy for the machine to do this. With aluminum metal, you got to be a little more careful. So I hope this video has helped and inspired you to try out our Pocket NC. It's a pretty exciting piece of equipment that you can get access to at the Makerspace. See you next time.